All fun in the job, right? But like you said, it's the art of the deal that really is fun. All right, so we don't have a clicker or a pointer, so I'm going to use the arrows in the keyboard. So I'm going to stand up here kind of like at a left turn. So kind of hang out here from the edge. Usually I like to kind of walk around. So you guys are the first to actually get this presentation. Because of my arc, and you kind of heard, I was in a partnership for 9 years that just ended amicably last year. It was my idea. Actually, it was my idea like 3 or 4 times, and finally committed to like not partners anymore. Just going different directions. And so my presentation always involved the club, other stuff we're doing, and now I'm just pulling out that has been all my sort of stuff. So I might be figuring out a little bit of a flow, but I like to keep this real natural. This is really just me up here telling you a little bit about myself, where I came from, some of the crazy stuff that's gone on in my life, right? We all got really wild, crazy lives, right? And when we talk to each other about it, we're always just scratching the surface. So I'm going to scratch the surface a little bit on me, and then just invite anybody who wants to come play in my sandbox if you feel like it. I've got nothing for sale. All right, just what I'm doing, and people can join me. So the title of my talk, and this is a brand new title out there, invest with a local, meaning a guy here in San Diego, been here a long time, been in California pretty much all my life, born in Los Angeles, but a local builder rehabber, now out-of-state projects for better returns. So I just followed where the money is, okay? And Janice, okay, let's just talk about disclosures. Instead of reading everything in a real boring fashion, there's always a disclosure. You're going to see deals, you're going to see numbers, you're going to hear things. Okay, the bottom line is we're all big boys and girls, and we're all responsible for ourselves. Everybody with each other in this room, everybody with me, do your due diligence, okay? I'm going to throw out some examples. I may have rounded off numbers for it to be easy. So, if you call it, if we have our knowledge people that goes, you missed the decimal point 001, I'm like, I know, it's okay. But the bottom line is, everybody's responsible for themselves, and I am responsible for nobody. Okay? And that's just right. It should be like always. So that's a disclosure. Okay. So let's talk about what I used to do here in San Diego. I used to be a senior scientist in biotech, okay, and I did that for 10 years, worked for three companies. Actually, there was like one company I worked for 3 times, all right? Is anybody in the like tech industry, bio industry here? We should have a few of you, it's pretty popular here. Okay. Right. I mean, now we've got some big dogs, established big biotech companies, but years ago, and it's still a lot like this, it's very fluid in San Diego. We have a lot of startups, and startups run out of money, they get acquired, and so I was working for startups, and the company I lasted the longest with, which is Scintillect, which is actually no longer around here. They split up, one got half got gobbled, and half got sold off, right? They ran out of money, and they let all middle management go, which is kind of where I landed, because people with the big salaries aren't going to fire themselves, and they're going to keep the people with the low salaries. And so they let us all go, and then after a few months, they realized nothing got done, so they hired a bunch of us back. And then they ran out of money. I worked for the same company 3 times. So it was on all this, and I'm like, I got to do something else. So I used to be a senior scientist, and then I was a flipper, short sales. 2009 is when I really started that. Market was crashing 1.5% per month. It was nuts. It really was the Wild West here. But if you knew what you're doing, you could take advantage of all the fear in the banks and all the fear of people selling their homes, and market's going like this, and just do kind of buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell like this to make some money. So did that, which progressed into being a rehabber, fix and flipper, and ultimately into new construction. Okay. And did a couple hundred short sales, did dozens of fix and flips, probably did about 2/3 under Koopman Clark Partners. You can really do diligence somebody easily. Just go to the county recorder records online, and just look at all the different recordings and just okay, what company name did you operate under? You can do a search on it, and you'll find all the deeds, trust deeds, everything should be recorded. And so if somebody's doing business, you should be able to see that they've done transfers of property and loans and all kinds of stuff. So this is from way back, but there's pages and pages and pages of stuff we did. So we did a lot. All that. So what do I do now? It got to the point in San Diego. Who's doing fix and flips or done fix and flips? We've got a few people in the room. Okay. Who's new at it? Okay. Who's kind of an old dog at it, like you at least were when it was shooting fish in the barrel just a few years ago? Is it different now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Is it harder to get a deal that makes sense? You've got to work a lot harder at it, right? Things have changed. Okay. And so for me, when it got to the point that the real estate agents were making more money than the person that was taking all the risk and doing all the work, switches. So I do operate as a broker realtor in San Diego, and you can actually hire me. I'm here, and I'm a darn good realtor too. Okay. Who are the other realtors in the room? I'm sure we got a few. Awesome. You guys are all awesome. All right. The other thing you can do with what I do right now is I am a developer, builder, and flipper in Kansas City, Missouri. And I'll tell you a little about how did I end up there. It's connections. It's all about, there's a lot of places across the country that are great to invest and different things to invest in. Ultimately, it's all about connections, right? Okay. So I ended up with connections. And so people can work with me that way too and play in that sandbox. They can invest with me. And I went to Kansas City, Missouri because it's a lot easier. And those margins that we used to get in like 2009, 2010, 2011, I get out there.
How long have you been in Kansas City?
Now 3 years. Okay. And I started out real small to really figure things. One, source people properly, which was the first year of mayhem, getting people right, and then making sure I really understood what I was doing, what that market was, and what kind of product to build. And this is
the Clemens family.
What's that?
Clemens.
I don't know anything about Clemens. Okay. But this is the year that I feel like time to expand, right? Get it small on purpose, now we're going to blow it up. Okay. So Janice kind of went over a little bit on me. I'll kind of go way back. So I just turned 50 last year. So
Yay!
Yay! All right, half a century. Who knows Robert Campbell? Speaks a lot, right? He's an economist, right? He usually puts the fear of God into you. Right?
73, and he'll tell you that every single time.
Every single time. But he always says, I won't listen to anybody until they're over 50. So now I got Robert Campbell. All right. So, but I've got this interesting name, Imran Clark. So I'll go way back to 1968 when I was born in Los Angeles. My parents had eloped because Dad's family is German Catholic and Mom's family just wasn't. So you can't marry that non-Catholic gal. And actually, Dad's family, Germany, ended up in New York, immigrated to San Diego in the 50s. So family's been here. And then Mom's family immigrated to California from Minnesota and Wisconsin in the 60s. And before that, on the Mayflower. So weird combination, but I've got this Arabic Muslim name. The parents dropped out of school to elope, came out of their chapel. Vietnam War was on, and the military said, "You're not in school." The draft was on. Dad got snagged in a draft, and in the Navy. So I was conceived, born in Los Angeles. Dad's in Vietnam, 3 months there. They said, "You're too smart to be a grunt," because he did have some education. So they moved him to Morocco, directing air traffic in a little Navy base in a town called Rabat. Not the cool one, Casablanca, Rabat. Okay, so they picked up on the culture and the names, and that's how you end up in Imran Clark, right? And they even changed their names from Richard to Lukman and Marjorie to Halima, and then my brothers are, we were all born blonde hair, blue eyed. And then you got Masuri, Rashid, Jahari, and Faisal. Oldest of 5. Okay. Fast forward, okay. Grew up pretty poor, actually, with my mom and dad. We ended up back in Los Angeles in Encino, not on Michael Jackson's side of the tracks. On the side of the tracks where, like, once a week, the house flooded at night with lights from police helicopters because somebody was a yard hopper run for the police, so we grew up with that. So education was the way out of all that. So long story short, ended up going to UC Santa Barbara in biochemistry, and then UCLA, got a PhD. And then here's some of the weird things that happened along my life. So just before I graduated, it turns out, so my grandfather on my mother's side was also a professor at that time, emeritus at UCLA in biochemistry. I didn't exactly mean to follow in his footsteps. That's a whole nother weird thing how that happened. But he ended up getting a Nobel Prize in chemistry in 1997. So that was an interesting thing. It wasn't something I accomplished, but it certainly made my life interesting. Okay. So we all went to Sweden, got the prize, that was pretty cool. He just died last year at 99, and his big joke while he was receiving the prize was he just outlived all his competition that said he was wrong about it. The last one, thanks. All right, so came here for a postdoc, that's how I ended up back in San Diego. Biotech companies. In all that, I came to a conclusion. How many people are working their W-2 job? Working from there now? We've all been there, right? Okay. You're here now, so I know you've done the same thing. Have you looked at your retirement, like Social Security and what your 401ks are doing? Have you crunched the numbers? Is that why you're here? Right? It's like you can work for 200 years, it's never going to work out. So that's kind of like what I was cluing in on. So I'm like, well, okay, probably real estate. So my very, very first deal was my wife at the time into a condo, and then we family started to expand. Time to get to a house. So we refinanced the condo. Where's Janice, right? Kept the condo as a rental. And that's still the little engine that can. That condo's been awesome. It's still awesome. Okay. So for real estate. It was in Costa, so always got great tenants. It was really easy. Bought it for $199. Then it went up and then it went down mortgage. Okay. So that's where I got the bug, and that led me into what's that?
Which year did you
2000. Yeah, we moved out of it 2001. So okay, so I got kind of excited. I said, "This is easy. This works. Anybody can do real estate." It just kind of worked by itself. You know, I thought I was being smart. I wasn't. The market was being smart, not me. So I worked my way all the way into a 7-plex apartment complex. At the end of 2006 is when I grabbed that with some real expensive money that I needed to refi out. And we all know what happened right then. All of a sudden, I could refi. I got clobbered hard. To the tune of about $500,000. You know, with escrow fees and everything, I was into that building for about $900,000. And by the time I sold it, because I really hated owning it, it had the worst tenants. I literally did route out crack dealers. The rehabber that made it look real pretty and even hit things that my inspector didn't find. You know, I didn't realize what a shot. You know, totally different. Even in a great market going up, I would never buy that building. But I got this thing. By the time I gave it back to the bank for everything that was owed to them on that, because I had to come with about 50% down, it sold at $430, and I just barely cleared it. And I lost that money. Plus, I was negative cash flow on it, right? So yeah, I booted about $500,000, gave that back to the bank, and we went on. I did my living accounts because I didn't own that thing anymore. Have you ever had one of those, Janice?
Oh yeah.
You've ever lost money on something so that
Don't wanna.
right, the don't want. So that was my lesson in. I gotta go be smarter about it. I started educating myself. That's a whole other story. But I started getting some formal and informal networking. And in all that, oh yeah. So I go to hardcore flipping in 2009. I was like the best and worst employee at the same time. So I'm working a full-time job. and how you're flipping houses is hardcore. Hour lunches, right? I was sleeping like 3 hours a night too, right? And the director, the senior director I reported to was okay with it. All he cared about was results. And I was very, very results oriented. But the CEO of the company was having a real problem with it because he wasn't getting all the face time. Like, where's Imran? Where's Imran? Where's Imran? You know. But if you looked at the company website, I was like more than half everything on that website. So I was like, doctor. And I was also out there doing that. So in all that, so he really wanted to fire me, but he couldn't because he's like, I was a linchpin on a lot of projects. So that was an interesting time. So instead, I'm flipping full time. The CEO has a love-hate relationship with me, but still gives me employee here too. And then I said thanks and I quit. All right. And I had lunch with our CEO and I told him why. Because that was the year I made, my salary was bigger than his. All right, then I got my license and I got divorced. I did meet my soulmate. Okay. So there's my swatting crew. A couple years ago, one of her kids, my boy in the family, besides myself. All right, so obviously we're on a Disney cruise here, but that really does sum up their characters. I was with Daryl Kukin. He and I ran the San Diego Investment Club. If any of you guys have been to that, that's really changed. Daryl's taking that in a whole other direction. I just let him have that, and he stays out of my hair in Kansas City. And then Kukin and Clark Partners, tons of deals, lots of acquisitions. Okay, so I'm just kind of giving you my background, and I've been out there a while. We got into some newspapers, we got into some radio stuff, we got on people's podcasts, so I kind of recognized what we were doing. Yeah, why real estate investing? I told you a little bit, we crunched the numbers. You know, this is an interesting thing that comes out of the Department of Health and Human Services, a study. You've probably seen it, you start certain to feel it. Bottom line is that at the time you're supposed to retire at age 65, which is what the government says you should retire at. Most folks are dependent on friends, family, or the government. Still not work, or still work because you want to work. It's like I make ends meet, so I'm going to go buy groceries, you know, when I'm 80 years old because I have to survive. And then you got the lucky few that are dead, and then the rest of them. It's actually a pretty good tax rate. All right. So, I mean, this problem that, you know, I was recognizing, you're all recognizing, the system's broken, our 401ks and 529. 529. So I started 529s for my two girls. I seeded it with the same amount of money, but so the one that was 4 years earlier should be way ahead of the one that was, 4 years later, with the same amount of money seeding it. But with what the stock market did is the one that I started later got ahead of the one I started earlier. So what was the point of even putting money into that first account? Because the stock market does this, right? And that one who's going to be going to college first, don't worry, the houses are going to pay for her college, but the 529 plan, she's still behind the one that's not even in middle school yet. She's starting high school first year, so it's just crazy, right? So when you just let it ride on the indices, yeah, and then you throw inflation and it doesn't work. So this is broken, right? Here's S&P 500, 10-year daily. I didn't take it up to 2000, this is an old slide, but if you're just letting it ride and you've just got that 401k plan going and you're not a day trader, I mean, I get stock people that say, no, you can make way much more money in stocks. I'm like, yeah, but look at you, you're not even watching the presentation, you're on your phone constantly, like, no, it's not, you have to be there. Be here, down, up, break even 6 years later. Might as well stuff your mattress. And you can go out even longer, right? Over 15 years. It's not really a great strategy, all right? So we're all on the 40-40-40 plan, work 40 hours a week for 40 years to retire in 40%, doesn't work. All right, so Like you all, I realized, oh my gosh, I'll just keep working until the day I die. Anybody feeling this way? We want to get to where we can do more of this. Okay, so that's when I really clued in to the cash flow quadrant. We've all seen the cash flow quadrant, Rick Kiyosaki. What I get from this employee, and then some people think that they're becoming entrepreneurs and business owners, but self-employed, where they give themselves a job, where you really get over to that BNI business and investing, right? So that's really what I want to do. So I focused on short sales. The last story how that happened, but it turned out I was really good at it. So was Daryl. So we really gelled well as partners at this time. In fact, we were both kind of meandering around, trying out different investment strategies until we decided to come together and we focused. So that's kind of a big lesson. Focus is everything, right? There's a million ways to make $1 million. Pick one and do it really well, okay? So the going was good. So yeah, I spent time educating, floundered around, formed a partnership in short sales, and then allowed me to quit my job 2 years later, never looked back. So I'm going to share you some examples of deals that I had done during this period, kind of moving forward to what I'm doing now. So starting out with short sale flips, we were not even rehabbing these. We were literally doing back-to-back escrows, because you could at that time. And this is a perfect example of one that was in a historic part of Chula Vista. Can't really tell from this picture, but one reason we did so well on this is so the bank sends out their appraiser, and you know when the appraiser doesn't even want to enter the property and just ask you the number, probably got a pretty good chance of doing well on that deal. So the appraiser's standing outside looking at the property like this, and I can see their body starting to move. And they're like, is there something wrong with the house? So the whole house was actually leaning like this from termite damage. It was 98 years old at the time. But we found the perfect buyer after we were going to buy it. That it was a couple that was getting married. They were both from literally that block and had gone to separate schools, and then met each other again, fell in love, and then one of their family buy them a house all cash, and they wanted to come back, and they bought this sight unseen because they knew that street, and they were moving back in, and they bought it all cash. And so we had, between the first and second liens, $800,000 in loans, up to $190,000.
What?
In Chula Vista, at its worst, how much did the market drop? About 50%. Is that more than 50%? Did we kill that or what? So there's two things that are going on here. One, this was in 2009, by the way. This was one of our first ones. So the market hadn't even bottomed out by 50% yet. The house should have never appraised for enough to get $800,000 in loans in the first place. At best, at the peak of the market, it was $600,000. So this is what the banks were doing back then, right? In fact, who we helped short sell that, was a real estate agent that had 6 of these that we were short selling, that got the appraiser to do this, got the lenders to do that, the whole fog and mirror thing, and just leverage. There's no issue. So that's what was going on. It was crazy. It was EMC Chase at the time. EMC is not around anymore. They were really mean. We were telling them the number. They literally cursed. They called us curse words on the phone. I think that they woke up first thing in the morning, laid their negotiators down on the ground and hit them with sticks, and then they put them on the phone and they talked to us. They were like the meanest people in the world, but still, we knew how to get to all the way through the layers and do it. Okay, so it's probably $300,000 at that time. So we resold it the same day. We had back-to-back escrow for $265,000 after some cash out the middle to an investor that came in and helped us do the flip. We pulled out $56,000 in one day. Not a bad deal. Yeah, not bad. Okay, and then we did a bunch of these. I think we had one go up to about 80, and we did other stuff that would be 10 or 15, and everything else. So, pretty cool. Okay. So then we started wanting to fix them up and sell them. We said, hey, you can make even more money doing that. So here's one that was in Claremont, Fixer, as an example. Bought this for $384. It was a pretty big rehab at the time. Put $80,000 into it, but we sold it for $615. Gross profit was $151. So that's not net profit. So how many see like the Property Brothers on HGTV and all these other things, and they put up, here's what we bought it for, here's what we rehabbed it for, here's how much money you can make. How many people question that? Like, wait a minute, aren't there some like other fees in there? Isn't there cost of money? If there are realtor fees, aren't there other things going on? So I'll give you my quick kind of looking down the thumb formula if I'm even going to look at a deal. I mean, you want to get into nitty gritty, but this will be your like 15 seconds. I call it my 15%. Barring the rehab being something insane like $150,000, take your purchase price, multiply that by 15%, which in this case would be 38,000 plus 18,000, right? 19,000. So somebody give me 15% on their $57,000 thereabout. So I want you to take $57,000 and just throw that in the fire, up in smoke, right? And that's assuming that you've got the rehab budget correct and that you're in and out of it in about 6 months, and you're only paying one side of real estate fees. So you list it yourself and you'll pay 2.5%, maybe 3%, to whoever's bringing the buyer. If you're not, you're listing with another agent and add their 2.5% to that 15%. Okay, so that 57 grand goes into the fire. Okay, so knock 57 off that, and then that's the net profit. And that includes carrying cost, cost to buy, cost to sell, everything. That's kind of a good sort of generic. You can also take about 10% of the sale price back in that day, so it's about 61 grand, so 57 to 61, and that'll give you the ballpark. Okay, I want you to keep that in mind because I'm going to show you an HGTV deal, and we're going to run the same numbers, see if they made any money.
How long did that go?
I mean, we were in and out of that thing in probably 4 or 5 months on that one. I had a crazy neighbor. That's another story. They were mad because they tried to buy it 2 years earlier. Okay. Yeah, so here's one of the Property Brothers deals. This is one brother. They had like the orange and the blue while they were doing this because they were competing with each other, so you couldn't get the better deal. They both sucked. Okay. If you take their purchase price of $400,000, 15%, 60 grand. Okay. Add that to the renovation cost. That's money out the door too. So that's 200 grand. So they're into this thing already for $600,000. 610. How much money did they really make? And a fart in the wind in the market, a couple of percent, right? And they're losing money. They get that sale price wrong, or that rehab really goes up to 175. And I'll tell you what, when you start getting into renovations this big, now you're not just doing 15% off of this. You got to start factoring in, and it's a sliding scale. I mean, if it's a small deal where it's 100 grand, I'll work on smaller margins. If you're going into so we got people doing flips now. Are you moving into higher and higher end type stuff to try to make it work? Right? Raising the hand. Because you basically are trying to go where the competition won't. Right? And so we ended up doing the same thing. So everybody and their brother and mother got involved in flipping, right? When it was really good. They all came in. And the market changed too. So margins got tighter, the competition got greater. This is really how I ended up in doing ground up construction. I was doing the same thing. I was going into high-end, $1 million type properties. But when you get into that, I want you to open your margins up too, because they take longer, you find more expensive problems. And then we started doing new construction again, because by then we had the experience and we had the firepower, and our competition didn't want to go there. Right?
So you mentioned Kansas City. So you got into Kansas City a couple years ago, 2 years ago. What type of cap rates are you getting up there? I just got into that market here.
I'll show you examples. Yeah, actually, so the kinds of margins that we were hitting here back in the like 2009, 10, 11 time is what I'm getting in Kansas City now. Okay.
So what type of cap rates for cash flow?
Well, they're not on cap rates, right? So that's more of like a rental type property. So, but you're looking at 30, 40, 50% profit margins on what you put in there. Okay, so here's again, this one was in Rancho Penasquitos, and this was back when flipping was really good in San Diego. I'm telling you now, it's rough. I haven't done a fix and flip in San Diego since probably 2014. Maybe one we sold in 2015, but we had done it in 2014. On smaller numbers back in the day, so purchase price 250, rehab at 35, still making a gross profit of 90. I mean, this is what you want to do. You don't want to try to work too hard to make them work. I'm pretty aggressive, or I just won't do the deal. So the deal is, how do you get deals like that? We just say no to everything. Really, you get what you ask for. I don't know how to work it. Okay, so we did a lot of other types of. Actually, my favorite ones, the deals that really just worked out incredibly well, were things like subject to. It's the creative acquisitions, where you take over a person's loan. You buy the house subject to that existing loan. Maybe they were behind, right? So we would give them a little bit of cash for keys, and then we would just bring the loan current, and then just hang on to it. I mean, we had one. It's just, yeah. In fact, I think this is the one in Escondido. It was an effective purchase price of $130,000. It had $110,000 in loans still on it, or closing costs, or cash out of pocket, which was basically bringing up all the arrears and paying that underwater owner some moving costs to go out was another 20 grand. So we were in it for 130, but we only got 20 out of pocket. And we took over their loan. And the PITI on that was 750. And guess what? Market rent was 1,500. That's how you cash flow in San Diego. You gotta do creative acquisitions, right? If you want to get good cap rates. Okay. And then it's not really current market value. This is market value when we sold it, which was just a little bit better cash flow, and then we eventually sold it for like 100 grand more. So subject to is a really cool thing to have in your pocket.
Did you do any improvements on it?
Very little. I mean, it was wrapped up in the, right? So that includes arrears, probably about 5 grand worth of work we did in it. Yeah. What's that?
Changing up light switches.
Yeah, it's paint.
Sockets.
Yeah, it was very minor stuff. Seller finance deals, interesting one we did in Lake Murray. So it was a purchase price of $265,000, and it was already worth about $450,000 the day we bought it at $265, and we didn't buy it at $265, like with our own money. It was seller financed. He wanted 10% down from us, so we copped up the $26,500, and then the seller carried a note of $238,500. Guess what interest rate we negotiated? 0. So it was like just paying them off over that one 4 years.
Are you cash flowing that right now?
Oh my! Well, we sold it. When it we thought it was 620, and then it just got bid up to 650, and that was like about 2.5 years ago. We sold that one. Interesting about that is we had 3 other pretty well-known, well-established like flip companies in San Diego that sat down with that same seller, and they offered him more money, and we still got it at 0% interest at $265. That's a whole nother story how you do that. We just know how to make it work. Okay, so, and actually, as I'd say, the other people really weren't listening to the seller's needs on that, right? They didn't need them to come in and buy it for a certain amount of money and then go and flip it. They had certain needs that we paid attention to that made them discount the equity to get what he needed. That's a beer or a coffee store. Okay. So things changed in the market. So that's when it was all good flipping in San Diego. Okay. And then the market shifted. Okay, so when we were doing it, like kind of going into 2009, the market was still dropping, bought it out. All of those really awesome deals, the flips, and finding people underwater and doing these seller finance and subject twos, all kind of happened right in here, right? And now the market's where it's at now, where the median detached home is over $600,000. We're in a good, healthy market. We don't really have buyers or sellers that are super motivated, right, to discount to the numbers that as a flipper we need. They're not underwater, okay? Even a really messed up property can be put on the open market and will get bid up way above what we would pay for it as a flipper if we're sane, right? It's a different market, okay? So, as I said, we started moving into the bigger rehabs, and eventually we got into new construction. Oh, and during all this, we were looking for cash flow, so we went out of state for cap rates. We have these for sale now because Daryl and I got these together as partners. So we had 20 of these houses. These are in St. Louis. We got 5 of them left that we're selling off. So they are for sale, and they're at 12 to 13% cap rates, and they average 45 grand. So it's easy for like a 401k to grab 1 or 2. They're already rented and managed. We rehabbed them 2 and 3 years ago. So there's 5 left in St. Louis if people are looking for just steady Eddie cash flow. Might want to look at that. At the same time, we started going into new construction in San Diego. This is one big project we did in Fire Mountain in Oceanside. So we've got some subdivided land. Some other folks had already subdivided it and gotten the plans approved and ready for permits. And we built these 3 modern looking homes. Went through that. So that was an education. And we bought a couple more lots in Fire Mountain also, Oceanside, that were not permitted yet. They were R1, so we didn't have to do any rezoning or anything like that, but we had to get the grading plans, the site plans approved, and the build plans approved. And that process took 3 years. And market changes in 3 years. Can't project. And so I'll talk about, and this is how I ended up going out to Kansas City.
So which year was this when you built it? What year was this?
We built these, let's see, we bought that into 2016, built it all through 2017, and I got the last one sold in 2018. And they were big houses. They sold for $1.2 million, $1.25 million, and $1.25 million as projects. But we didn't make on it what we hoped to make. It wasn't worth all that cost and time and everything to make scraps, right? So, like, we need to kind of change plans. So what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to like teach you all how to rehab. You've all heard those courses again. And I'm not going to go for the soup to nuts on a build. It's going to be different in different states and different cities. And I could sit down with anybody over a coffee and really kind of talk about the details. I mean, building a house is like making a cake. There's certain ingredients, and you got to do them at a certain time, and you're just building the layers and put them in, and you have contractors that know what they're doing, okay? And you've got your judges, you're in a cooking contest, who are your inspectors, saying, yeah, that tastes right, that looks right, no, do that again. So it's basically what building a house is. Okay, and it can be done easy like it is in Kansas City, or it can be made very, very challenging like it is in most of California and certainly in San Diego. Okay. So here's, as a small builder, right? You've got your big builders like KB Homes, and they're throwing in things like Melrose for 30 years or so, and they're recapturing that money, and that's part of their profit margin, or part of their profits. I don't have 30 years to wait for it to make sense. It's got to make sense on the sale. So, being a small builder, meaning you're only doing a couple or a few houses in San Diego, just getting your site plan approved, right? being allowed to do the grading work, to push some dirt around, can take years, right?
Yeah.
We have 2 side-by-side lots on Fire Mountain that it took the city of Oceanside 3 years. The city fees are ridiculous. So if you're building just like $1 million house, let's say, you can be with like just the water meter alone was $33,000. Okay, and then another $15K in school fees. You see how they just start to add up, right? So by the time you go through it, and every time, and the people down at City Hall are wonderful. They all know me by name. They all wave at me. They all kind of like make jokes. But still, if you bend down to tie your shoe, there's a fee.
They got like you.
Yeah. So greater than 100. You're gonna, if you're not getting it where the build plans are already in place, and you got to be hiring like the tune $1,000 probably. You're going to be hiring architect for the plans to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars. You'll be hiring the civil engineering company to put together the grading plan, the site plan, all of that. It's gonna run you tens of thousands of dollars, all right, before you can even move a dirt clod. Okay, inspection delays are ridiculous. So, inspector will come by pretty much every day, and if there's something that gets out of whack for them, or they say that's not exactly how it is on the plan, which sometimes happens, or you make a little change that you didn't think was that big of a deal, freeze everything. It has to be put on the plans, and it has to be reviewed by the city. And by the time, and then you can't just do it yourself. You got to actually take it back to either your architect or your engineer, who's going to charge you a few $100 to a couple $1,000, right? That's going back into all those third-party fees, and then they're going to submit it to the city. And then by the time it gets to the city, with the city of Oceanside anyway, it triggers an automatic 30-day review. And so you could freeze your project for 30 days. And how long does it take them? Well, it's up to 30 days.
Right.
So how long do they take to review it? Usually by about day 34, they're looking at it. Because they're not on the same timeline as you. Okay. And so then it comes back, and then you can start again. And if you go through this again and again, like 6 times, you're 6 months into it, right? Wasted time. So price points are high. We're in coastal Southern California, so you're committing a lot of money to this. As the operator, as a private, if you're looking to make private loans to an operator in San Diego, they're looking for big chunks of cash because everything is expensive, right? So you got to come up with a lot, and you put a lot at risk. The margins have gotten thin. In fact, I think they've gotten kind of there's a lot of people doing flips that every time I look at them, I say, how are they going to make money on that house? And they don't. They lose money. They lose their investors' money. I know a couple of guys that are running some pretty big operations here in San Diego that are making it work. And they're really good at what they do, and they make a lot of money. But I'll tell you, they work so hard to make that money, to where they're the ones shopping at Home Depot. They're the ones GCing their projects, right? They're cutting out all these middlemen and costs, and they have no life, right? And they're now talking to some of the same people that I talk with and mastermind with about systematizing everything, and they're having the wake-up calls, moving out of state, or finding ways to take themselves out of the picture, because you just kill yourself. The people that are successful at fixing cliffs in San Diego are killing themselves to do it. Okay. And then, what are your alternate exits? We all hear you should have more than one exit on an investment deal.
Right.
If you're in San Diego building, your only other exit is you die. You either sell that thing, make money, or it's dead. There is no other exit strategy, typically, right? Let's compare it to Kansas City. So how did I end up in Kansas City, Missouri? So I had the builder actually on that big project you saw there, and he came from a smaller one. I stole him from somebody else that we had partnered with. He came over with us. So that's Kevin. He's originally from Kansas City, Missouri, so that's my connection. And he followed the sunshine and some girl out here to San Diego like 2.5 years prior. Girl didn't work out for him, and he was, but he liked the sunshine, and so he started GCing projects for people. And he's a real experienced GC. He had helped developers build hundreds of houses in Kansas City, I mean, like whole neighborhoods. And so he's definitely got that builder experience. And so have been going through all of this, and we were sitting down to lunch with Kevin, complaining like, man, these delays, these fees, and he's like, it's not like that where I'm from. Like, tell us more, Kevin. Says, yeah, I don't go through all this. Says, I still have like a lot of my team members. I know all these landowners. My build cost should be such and such, and yeah, I think they should sell for this. And like, wow, those sound like the good old days. And he goes, yeah, and it's much faster and easier. So we're like, well, let's look into this. And we liked it. And so he was flying back and forth between Kansas City and so he was working on these houses, and then he was working there. And eventually he just stayed. We're not doing any more in San Diego. And he stayed in Kansas City. And so how are things different in another land? So
Really?
it took me 3 years here, it took me 30 minutes.
Really? That's every time? Or
That's real time. I'm not even, in fact, it's only hours because we had to wait our turn to go to the counter sometimes. And then you go over the counter and I'm in the suburbs, I'm out in the country. It's a little bit different if you're like in the metro city. That might be 30 days, And then I had one that did take 2 weeks, but it wasn't the city. It was because we were building in a subdivision with an HOA, and they had to review our plans. We got passed by the city, and then HOA got around 2 weeks. But yeah, literally, I'm out in the country. I'm about half an hour or so from the downtown airport, North County, kind of like we're here, right? Or being in a Vista or something. And you walk in. They've never seen us before. We've never submitted plans, and they've only got 3 questions for us. Like, where's it at? Here on the map. All right. How big is it, square footage wise? Because they're going to charge me a fee on square footage, right? And then last question is, do you have some kind of a drawing or something? And it could literally be like on a like. It could be on a napkin. It could be on a yellow legal pad with 33 by 22. So the first house plans that we built out there, we had our architect here in San Diego do them on CAD files and the big rolled up things. And so that's what we turned into these guys. And they just looked at us like, what are we supposed to do with that? We don't even have a file cabinet for this. You're not from around here, are you? Like, sorry, we were like apologizing for our really detailed plans. So different. Okay. City fees, maybe.
it's only 1%?
1,000. I paid as little as 500 full permits. Some, if you want to throw septic on there, throw another $3,000. It's a whole nother thing. Third-party fees. Yeah. If it's already a build-ready lot, an infill lot. Now I'm doing where I started with. Now I got 120 acres out there of farmland and woods that we had to rezone and subdivide. We had to come in. It's a whole nother story on third-party fees. I think it's like $30,000 instead of 300. Okay, yeah. Inspection delays, huh? So they do inspect. You're inspecting all your foundations, your septic, your electric, your HVAC, your insulation. I mean everything that we do here. But they don't make a big deal out of it, right? And you can do things like, I think this dining room should be like 5 feet pushed out on one side, and your builder just does it. They don't even care. They won't even have you adjust the plans that you recorded with the city. You're like, oh, okay, I see you made the dining room bigger. Yeah, okay. There was one where, and this is important, you need to know where the septic system was. We're kind of out in the country, so a lot of what we do is on septic. Some of the stuff we do is on sewer because we're out, but on septic. And our installer came and he moved the septic somewhere else because of the lay of the land that was different from the plans. And so the inspector came out and go, oh, you moved the septic system. And Kevin's out there, he's like, uh-huh. And he goes, well, that you're gonna have to go and re-record with the city. He's like, oh. How long do I have to stop this project for? He goes, oh, I don't want to hold you up. Keep going. I just trust you're going to do it before you sell the house.
Wow. Wow.
Right? Thank you, sir. Keep going. Very, very different mentality.
So is that happen every time, or it's just one time you found a good guy?
No, that's how they are.
That's how they work.
That's just how they are. Yeah. So, price points. I mean, if you're doing comparable house here that would sell for $1 million, and you're doing that size and that trim package, you might go up to 400. So you're into it for a lot, and that's on a resale. You know, margins are sweet. Alternate exits. So, let's say the Armageddon hits and the market just, the bottom of the market just drops out. What do? Well, I could still rent that for the 12 cap. So even if I had hard money on it, I could float it, right, and ride out the market. So
you have a team of builders there?
I've got one main builder, and now I'm building that out into a team, and we're working out whether I'm going to separate them or if I'm going to have my main guy basically manage the other guys, which is kind of what he wants to do. So I'm going to see how he performs at that. And the reason I didn't have a big team of builders the previous 3 years is that I purposely kept my operations there very small, doing like 4 or 5 houses a year, because I wanted to really make sure I was doing the right thing in that market. The first year is really about sourcing people. Where, like I said, wherever you go, there's a lot of great places that you can invest and make money all over the country. But even if you go into a great market, the wrong people will mess you up, and you'll lose a
So
ton.
you haven't actually talked about the path of progress and the light rail system. The light rail system in Kansas City.
Rail system. I'm not going to go into all that because we could just open up a whole can of worms. But Kansas City it's a great. There's a lot of similarities to Kansas City in San Diego in the sense that it's a very diverse economy, right? So it's not like a Detroit. You know, it's all one. Like say the Bay Area, which is a very diverse economy, but you've got a single sector that's propping up that housing. Which is technically, we had the .com crash there, and salaries that we're paying for having moved out. Kansas City is very, very diverse in its market. It's got a lot of it's got a lot of big blue chip companies out there. It's got Ford Motor Company. It's got Hallmark. You know, there's this bidding war that's been going on for Amazon, where they already built their almost 1 million square foot facility out there. They've already got it. They got 2 huge sports franchises with the Chiefs and the Royals. There's biotech that's leaving places like California and going out there. We got a lot of great stuff going out there.
So they're building a light rail system right down Main Street. Is what I was talking about.
Oh, okay,
It's
yeah,
$250
yeah, and that's
million.
you're talking like towards.
It's just got approved. I think you may not know about it, right?
I'm not in the metro area.
Yeah.
though.
So
Yeah.
downtown's here,
Right.
and there's a light rail system that goes east and west.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like but it's free.
Yeah,
But
that's cool.
Not 6 months ago. Before I invested a year and a year ago. But right down Main Street, through Crossroads, down through Westport,
Yeah.
they're putting $250 million down Main Street, and it's already approved. It's going
They're
to live in a year and a half.
Pouring tons of money
It's done.
into stuff
It's a
there.
free
Yeah.
train.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, there's a lot going on there that's just. And the metro area is actually pretty competitive with wholesalers and flippers, but they're not out in the county where I'm at. For instance. So I'm kind of out where the competition is, and there is a lot going on in the metro area, and there's a lot of opportunity there. A lot of people are moving out to my houses, commuting in, just like they do North County here. So the migration patterns, you got a lot of people that are moving in from other cities and other states to Kansas City, but you've also got a huge internal migration going from like the South County towards the north and the metro area, especially the union workers, like so the government workers and like union workers for like Ford that are retiring, want to get out of the city. A lot of them have to live in the city while they're working, and then they're retiring and they want acreage. They're getting their 5 or 10 acres, which is what I'm building on, right?
It might be helpful for the people around. I just bought a 5-plex there for
Yeah.
$385. 5 units for $385. It's cash flow $2,000 a month. It's
Yeah.
right in the path of progress.
Yeah.
My question though, I mean, a lot of the people in this room can't buy like a 5-plex, right? I mean, that was
Yeah.
cash flowing with grand.
Yeah.
But why are you still focused on houses when you can be buying?
Well, why don't you
5?
do commercial?
Because
Well, why
I'm
don't you do
making 10
notes?
times my money.
Okay,
I mean,
so
yeah,
remember,
that's
so this isn't about questioning, like, should I do one strategy or another?
Right.
Because we're not gonna have that discussion, because it's gonna turn into this thing, okay? So, I've been pulled a lot of directions, as to like, I could go into commercial, I could go, back and do a whole bunch of apartments. The thing is I'm good at single-family homes, okay? I'm good at negotiating them, I'm good at buying them, I'm good at renovating them, I'm good at building them. And so it really is, as long as the going is good, I'm gonna stick with what I do well. Because in my experience with myself and seeing other people, as soon as you try to take on too many things, it all falls apart. So you really kind of want to focus in your area. Because you're absolutely right. I mean, there's areas that you can do incredibly well in, but you want to be an expert in an area, make yourself an expert in that area. Anybody that's fresh at it isn't, they're going to want to either partner with you or partner with me on that strategy, or you're going to spend a lot of time figuring it out. And so this kind of plays to a lot of people that are trying to get into the real estate investing world, and you're going to all these meetings, and you're taking all these education courses, and you're paying, $300 or $30,000 for something, and you get all these strategies, and all of a sudden it's a smorgasbord, right? It's this huge menu, and like, I can try this, I can try this, I can try this, and it gets a little bit overwhelming, huh? I was there, right? In fact, that's how we ended up at short sales. It's something that myself and Daryl knew we'd be really good at, but we were learning all these other strategies too. And short sales are really hard and they take a long time. So we didn't want to do what actually we were really trained well at. We wanted to go off what we thought was easier, and we weren't having, as soon as we focused and just cut everything else out, that's when we got real successful. Now in all that, the cheese moved, right? So we had to kind of shift what we were doing. I had to shift what I was doing. So to answer your question, the reason I don't do that is because I have an expertise somewhere else, and it's going good right now. And if I were to start focusing on building a whole nother business, that would fall apart. Unless and until I get to the point where I can pull myself out of the equation and I've got other people all the way doing it. And I'm not quite really at that point yet. That's what I want to build to, where I can free up my time, kind of spend a few hours a week managing other folks so that I can develop other areas. But I'm not quite there yet. Okay. So here's some of the houses we're building, just examples, pictures put up. Nice ranchy type houses with walkout basements. Here's some finished products. We're building them nice. These are like interiors.
What's your per square foot cost to build?
It'll be all in with land and build.
Not land, just to build them.
I'll be like $80 a square foot. I'll go up on some really nice stuff, up to 100 or just over.
So your $400,000 price point is equivalent to $100 or to $1 million price point here?
On the quality of the home, right? So if you were to take that same house with those finishes and that square footage, you'd be looking at about $1 million house here. So, and it's interesting. So you bring up square footage is appraised a little differently out there too, because so you have basements in a lot of these properties, okay? And how it's appraised depends on whether it's finished, not finished, or partially finished. And so when you start looking up, well, if you were to go to Zillow, for instance, and you're like, okay, I want to start comping stuff out. I'm not on the MLS, so I'm just going to use Zillow and Redfin and stuff like that in another area, okay? And you're looking at square footage, you go, wow, that house is only 1,500 square feet. It actually might be 3,000 square feet because it's got another 1,500 below, but it's not being appraised because it's not showing as a finished basement. So depending on what neighborhood we're in, we will leave it unfinished, we'll do a partial finish, or we'll fully finish. And so that's going to actually affect the cost. I'm still building the same overall construction, but my trim package will be different. And maybe some interior walls will be different if I put in a bathroom and a couple of bedrooms downstairs. So the other interesting thing about Missouri is it's a non-disclosure state, which means that you don't have to disclose the price that property's sold for. So not everybody posts that up to the public. So when you go on a Zillow, for instance, and you go, I want to see what's selling in that area, what just sold, and you see all your yellow dots for sales, you'll have a whole bunch of blank yellow dots, right, of unreported sales amounts. And so, and this is one of the reasons why I had to spend a little bit of time figuring that market out too. I had to get in really good with the local brokers and agents there, right, and get to know, like, what is this stuff really going to sell for? Okay, you were the one listing on this. What kind of product should I be building? Because you really do need help. If you're an outsider going in, you really do need help. Whereas, I mean, you can go into some cities, you know, some states, and you can figure it out pretty easily on the computer, right? Especially if there's a lot of sales around. You can figure it out and just look at what the interiors are like, what are people buying. But where I'm at, and it's a barrier to entry, which is good. It's actually even a barrier to entry to all the flippers that are in the metro area that don't want to come and compete with me half an hour out. They don't know that market as well as they know the metro market. So it's an interesting tidbit there. Okay, so here's the map, right? So here's where you're talking about, like, you know, Kansas City proper, the metro area. Okay, and where I am building right now, places like Lathrop, Plattsburgh, Kearney, that's showing up here. All in the North End subdivisions. I'm now, so those were all one-off builds in somebody else's subdivision. I bought lots, I built the houses. Okay. Here's just some examples. Recently, I've got some things we can do even better numbers on. I'm going, so I've been waiting to see if there's a market for doing slab homes where I don't build the basement, because I can do those faster and cheaper, right? And I can hit a price point where I'm selling them, like, say, in the 200s, where I'm going to get more buyers. And so now I'm starting to see that. That's a product I really want to pull investors into. Okay, so we did a few homes out there over the last 3 years, and decided let's just make our own inventory. So I bought 120 acres out there at $5 grand an acre. It was all, we call this the front 60, here's the back 60. This was all farmland. It was being rented out to a farmer who was alternating years with corn and soybean. Okay, and then this is all wooded out here. It's got a little lake here. There's a deer, there's wild turkey, there's big fish in here, like 4-foot long pike. It's fed by an underground spring. It's not slushy. Okay, so this was all raw land. Got it for $600,000, so it's $5 grand an acre. It's amazing you can buy an acre for $5,000, right? So I got the guy to seller finance 500 of it too. So I come with 100 down. So 120 acres sounds like a lot. Like here, you figure 1,000 homes. Out there, because we're in the country, yeah, they're 5-acre lots, and this all has to do with the septic. If you're going to be on septic, you have to have a minimum of 5 acres, so that translates to 18 lots. Okay, with the flood zones and the road coming through. Okay, so if you were to buy raw land here and you had to get it in San Diego, and you had to get it rezoned, which I did. I get it zoned residential, all right, and then approved for a plat map, approved for roads and utilities. And how long do you think that might take out here?
10
decades.
Plus, decade, 15 years, 20 years. I know there's some people trying to get approval on stuff here in North County that they have to wait for another generation to do it. Not kidding. So that took me 45 days to get it all approved.
Did you choose it like a lot of people would choose something like that within a half hour to a Walmart or
That one I chose.
shopping center,
Yeah,
or something along those lines?
it's not next to Walmart's big shopping centers. I mean, where we're building out there, everything's going to be, that might be 10, 15 minutes away. What makes this prime, for a couple of reasons, up in that area is, one, it's on an elevation. Now, out here we wouldn't call it an elevation, but out there you're talking Kansas and Missouri. So if you're like 30 or 40 feet above everything else, you can actually see all the way to the horizon, right? So it is up in elevation. You got, like, this is like a little lake, call it Big Pond, all woods, so you get trees on the property and you get water. That's a huge selling point. It's all tree line back here, huge selling point. This is Highway PP, and it's just 1.5 miles from Interstate 35. So being really close to the interstate access where they can get straight to downtown or wherever they want to go. So it's got a huge location factor there. So it's not, this isn't shopping mall stuff. The people that are buying out here, they want that country feel. They want the wild turkey running across, right? They all own guns. They want to shoot at something. They do. I think that's one reason why you don't have so much bureaucracy out there. It's kind of a little bit like Texas. It is, you look people in the eye and you keep your word, you could get shot. So, you know, I mean, they're nice people. Not sure. All right, so yeah, it took 45 days to get it approved. We started pushing through the dirt last year. That's my builder's girlfriend's daughter, Mackenzie. We hired a broker to start promoting it, and so they flew a drone before the winter hit. That's what it looks like. Bud, old farm. So, little farmhouse right here in a workshop, which we're using as a staging center. Yeah, Kevin's been pretty good at working deals for me too. So, yeah, there would have been a big fee in process with the fire department, which we completely skipped because we just donated this old wreck of a house here, and we're going to let them use it for practice. So they're not set it on fire, smoke and all that stuff. Same thing with we have to strip all the old fields, and we have to seed it with sod. We worked a deal out with a farm, and that would have cost us about 30 grand to do. Worked a deal with the farmer when we bought this, and he still has crops on it. We let him pull his last harvest, and he's gonna go turn all that soil for us, and he's gonna seed it and let the sod grow for free. So, going in the back acreage here with all those trees and pushing that road through, and then making the pads. We want to keep as many trees as possible because they do sell a lot, but you got to take some out. Oh my God, that's going to cost a lot. You just find a guy that likes to sell lumber, chop wood. He's going to go pull all those trees out for free. Right. He just keeps, and he's even going to take some of them and transplant a few along the road here and up along the highway to screen it all out. Well, he takes the lumber out and do that for free. So I do figure out ways to get cost low.
Art of the deal.
Yes. Some more pictures. There I am standing by the lake portion of it. That's back here. There's even a little pond here. So this tract is going to be a community park for people on the front acreage. Okay, so that's the big one, and there's actually room to invest in that. I don't want to keep you guys here too late, but so we're also now, like I said, I kind of come from fix and flip, which I wasn't doing out there. I focused on the new construction. I wanted to stay hyper focused and really just make sure we got things right before I expanded out. So now I'm at the point where we got things dialed in that I can expand the type of operations. I was just showing you the new construction. We can even do new developments. I've got another partner lender, a bigger lender, where we can come in as the smaller ones that will help us do more development. And actually, they're based here out of San Diego, so they're real interested in that. So there's opportunity to make that even easier, where I don't have to look for solar finance or 600K or whatever. But we're adding back the fix and flips. I'm adding back, like I said, the smaller slab homes, smaller price points. So I was just out there last month. That's why there's like some going out next week. I got two. Janice is talking about due diligence and make sure that people really do what they're doing. So I have two new investors that haven't invested with me before, so they're new for me. We're going out there next week. So they're gonna see these projects, walk houses, see ones that are being built, ones that are on the market that are finished. They're gonna meet my main builder. They're gonna talk to a couple of agents and one of the main brokers that are right in that area and be able to ask them about the market, how do things sell, what should be built. So they're going to come out with me, and I'm just going to let them do their due diligence. So I was doing the same thing last month, and so we were driving around this. This one's a fix and flip. It's a 2-bedroom that we're turning into a 3-bedroom. We picked it up for 50 grand. We're going to put about 50 grand worth of work into it, and it should sell for 175. So in for 100, out for 175. It's about a 3-month project that's turned into like a 7-month project because we have to wait out the insane winter they're having right now. Everything is frozen out there. Okay. This is a build lot to me. It's got a house on it, but I'm scraping it. Bought that for 5 grand. I'm scraping it for 5 or 10, and then we'll be all 180 with the purchase and the build, and figuring that should exit at 250 within 6 months. So you can build a lot faster out there. Okay. This is the same lot, just different seasons. Just so I'm showing you, everything doesn't really look ugly all the time. It does get pretty, I promise. It says, I took that picture myself. That was when it came on the market. And this is around a place called Lake Concord that's up in that Plattsburgh area. I can buy 5 or 6 more lots here that I want to build that are going to be into it for about that 180 price, 180 to 200, and selling for like, the 180s will sell for 250. Actually, that's conservative. There's a guy, I'm building 1,400 square foot slab homes with nicer trim package. A guy that's been a landowner, a developer, and a broker out there for 50 years is building little 1,200 square foot things with a much lower trim package than what I'm doing, and his are going for 250. So I'm just saying 250, but it might go 260, 265, maybe even 270. But we'll let the market tell us that. So there's more of that to build and invest in. That's sort of the numbers. We blow through these really quick. So there's really, how people work with me are in come and play in my sandbox as investors are twofold, 2 ways. My favorite are equity partners. I really don't like taking on debt and loans. I like to keep it, equity's just safer for everybody, right? Okay, so depending on if you're doing like those little slab homes, you can do it for 180. If you're going into that subdivision I showed you that we're building out, that's going to be pretty high end. We're going to be selling those houses close to 500, like 485 on the front acreage. It'll be even more in the back acreage, but we're not going to build those until later. We're going to do the front portion first. We're going to do that in phases. Okay, so people can come in for 180 to 360 if they want to be equity partners, and then sell out at these numbers. In the past, like the second half of this past year, I think is about the worst my equity partners have done on a rate of return. The cash and cash is still the same, but we have hit the wildest weather that has prolonged us finishing stuff and selling. And so even getting the same cash, they're waiting like 3 months longer than normal. They would have gotten their money back, and so that erodes the rate of return if you were to like annualize it. But typically over the last 2 years, my equity partner has been coming out at roughly 15 to 18% rate of returns. This last batch, luckily a couple of them have been with me before. One of them even made almost a 22% rate of return on their last one, which I said don't get used to that necessarily. But we sold it before it was done without any realtors. Stuff we sell before it's done, but usually I have it listed once I get into drywall. But yeah, now they're down to I think like about a 13% rate of return on the ones that are selling right now, because we just had to wait out so much that happened. It's not just this winter. We had the hurricanes hit Florida earlier last year that actually affected me because I had a big window manufactured order that we negotiated the best price out of a company out of Florida. And they were all done, all the windows were up, and then a hurricane came and blew them all out. And then they wouldn't make our windows, they had to make all the windows for the entire coast before they came back and made our windows. We're not using them anymore, and we now found somebody who's 10 minutes away. That's at that price. And it's funny because Kevin even built their manufacturing facility, helped them build it like years ago. How did you not know they were at that price?
So I'm a little, so I'm trying to understand what you're saying. So like, I just bought $3 million in leverage. I used in Kansas City and apartments, right? But I've only put in $1,000 from that $3 million because I got loans, right? So I'm sitting on $1 million in cash. Like if I gave Butch you a check for 2 houses, right? I could buy 2 of those for $500,000.
Well,
I could buy 4 houses.
well, maybe we build 4 houses, right?
Right.
Yeah, or build 4 or 5
I'm trying to
houses.
wrap my mind around not being leveraged. Like, why would I could write you a check tonight for $500,000?
Well, if you want to leverage, go ahead. So we could sit down later and talk about this. So here's the thing about leveraging. If you leverage, you can create a higher rate of return on the money that you put in with that leverage. But depending on how you well, one, no matter what, you're going to be at a higher risk. And then depending on how you do it, you're going to be at extreme risk, how you do your capital stack. So this is where people get into trouble. This is how people got into trouble during the big crash. They leveraged like crazy. Okay, and they get taken out.
That's true, but yeah, there's the on reserve.
Well, even with some leverage, you're at risk. Even at 50%, which is still safer than say 80 or 90%. So the safest way is all equity. Okay, as soon as you start leveraging, right, and if you leverage on top of leverage, you know, so if you're in a second or third position, you're putting yourself in a riskier position. If you're just talking about doing your own down payment, getting one single loan, that's different. But I'm just saying, right? So leverage creates risk. Okay, and do you know George Antone? He look him up. So he created a formula, a way to actually, what's the word I'm looking for? To quantify risk. Most people do it by feel, right? Well, it feels like this is really risky. Feels like he actually came up with a way to quantify risk, and it's pretty cool how he does it, right? And he'll talk about how you create your capital stacks, equity versus leverage, how much, where you're at, returns. And so I like equity. I've been at the point where I was servicing over $100,000 a month in mortgage payments because we were doing so many houses and we were doing just that. We were doing down payments, we were bringing in leverage, and it allowed us to create incredible returns on the money that we had in it, and we had huge volumes. And even at really good ratios, if the loans were only at say 70%, you know, it didn't change the fact that what we were coming out of pocket. Now you're talking maybe a rental or something. You know, in my case, we were doing flips, but it depended on the business and the pipeline going. And as soon as the market slowed down a little bit, and we weren't selling as fast, but we were still servicing $100,000 a month, that became really stressful, right? And so my philosophy has shifted. I like sleeping at night. I like knowing that my investors are extremely protected. I don't like I do some leverage, but I minimize it, right? You know, and there's some investors or it's a type of project where you just have to leverage it. But I really like to keep my investors safe. Everybody is secured to the property. The folks that come in as my equity partners, I don't like mixing people, right? Unless you are friends and you know each other, then maybe you form an entity and invest with me, but I'm not gonna put you with a bunch of strangers. I'm not gonna pool all your money. You're gonna be secured to the property. You are the one and only one that's on that property secured. Okay, if anything ever happened, you can take back that property and not worry that there's somebody in front of you, some other bank that's gonna foreclose and take it and you lose your money, or you take it and you have to now pay a first lien, right? So, safe, okay? You could be a debt partner. So that's my second type, that the equity partners are gonna ride the market with you, right? And you have the opportunity to do a lot better than the debt partners. But there is also the risk that it doesn't sell for what we think, things go more expensive and your rate of return goes down. Some people just like to have a fixed debt. Or some people can't come in with this much, right? And they might have 50 or 75, we'll work something out. I'll keep it in a deal that's pretty safe. It's not my preferred method. I still do some of it, but I really like the equity partners. And again, it's the sleeping at night. I've been at this a long enough time, and I like to compartmentalize everything. As I was saying, I don't pool money. So every one of those houses, every one of those projects, I open a separate bank account for. And my one investor that goes on that house, that money goes into that one bank account, and that bank account is used only for that house. So there's none of this like, oh, let's put 5 projects together and try to sort it all out. You know, 1, things get messed up. 2, it's an accounting nightmare. And then when you're an investor, everything that was done, and they're, you know, I could show a spreadsheet of everything that was done, and then I could print out all the bank statements from that one bank account, and everything should line up. Like there's that. Okay, so no commingling of funds, no borrowing from Peter to pay Paul kind of crap. I mean, there's a lot that happens in this business. Some people say, oh, that's crazy. You start getting like dozens of bank accounts, and I guess then trying to put dozens of people into one bank account and trying to sift through it all. It's not that crazy. So I keep it very compartmentalized. And that's just, you know, after doing this for a decade, keeping it safe and easy. Okay. So that's basically what I do, what I'm doing now. And if people want to join in, I can go into more details. We can get actual houses, walk through them. Let's sit down, let's have a coffee. We'll go through, you know, and then everybody's going to have different questions and things that they want to kind of open the can of worms on. And I'm happy to talk about any of that one-on-one. Me, that's it. I've kind of been around. I'm older because I still have a Hotmail account. It's not AOL though. So,
Thanks so much.
thank you,
Aaron.
everybody.
Let's
Appreciate it.
give
Yeah.
him a hand. Thank you so much for what you shared with us. Flips and rentals and new construction, and every time you talk about it, it's so easy in Missouri, is what I keep thinking.
It's
5-acre lots, he hand writes it and puts it back on the desk, and they go, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, no, guys like they're like in town, so they're actually on sewer in the town. So like being, yeah, so you've got stuff that's in the country on 5 lots. There's like 180 houses are actually like on half-acre lots, and they're on sewer, because they're like, it'd be like being in the town of Vista as opposed to 10 minutes away.
So, you can stick around a little bit, people can ask you questions.
Sure,
Okay?
sure, yeah.
Maybe we'll take one question before we just get individual. Anybody have a good one? There we go.
How do you, this is just a question that I just had, I don't know if you can answer it. How do you discover the zoning of a property? What's a good way to look for that? Like you mentioned R1, what are you doing R2s?
Yeah, so just go online to the county websites, and they'll, you know, each state will have it a little bit different. Even some cities have it a little bit different, but they should have a cheat sheet somewhere in there where you can look it up. So you'll find a lot of stuff that's going to be on either like county recorder's office, county commissioners, you know, on county sites.
City planning department.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, if you want to, so if you're going online, going on the web, you should be able to find something that's going to be a cheat sheet. You can even just kind of type it in and Google it, and maybe somebody will have a PDF that you can kind of look at that will have it for that area, aside from like actually walking in and going in there. And then it helps if you know, there's some good old boys and good old girls clubs out there. Like the one city we were in, one of the ones I showed you, Kearney, got some houses there. I'm out of Kearney now because I wasn't part of their club. And there was a club that was squeezing people out. Some of them are actually being indicted now because they were doing, we had the owner of like all the hardware there, and then his lawyer wife was on the zoning board, and they were kind of doing some crazy stuff. Now, where I'm at in Lathrop and Polk, basically Clinton County, not that it's supposed to matter, but the mayor's a good friend of from high school, my builder, and then his other good friend from high school just got elected sheriff, so it doesn't hurt.
You know the right people there.
And they all like me, yes, and the commissioners like me too. I'm being taxed on.
Well, I want to give you a little gift for coming tonight. It's says congrats, it's a Home Depot card, you can probably buy some paint in it.
Yeah.
It says you're crushing it, so it's really great for the rehab people who love with sledgehammers when they're doing demos, so thank you so much for coming tonight.
Appreciate it. Yeah, there you go.
So you guys can ask me some questions, and we're gonna spend a little time sort of cleaning up because they